Alright, welcome back to another web development video where I show you how to make modern websites using HTML5, CSS3, and a little bit of JavaScript. In this series we're going through a program called Webflow. You can find it at webflow.com, and what we're doing is we're recreating this HTML, just got this as a free HTML5 template, and so sort of a marketing website for what do they call, a law firm. And we've moved through the design, and we're down here to our contact form now. The last section that we did was our attorneys. This is, you can get a preview inside of Webflow, so this is what it actually looks like as we've created our website. And we're just kind of using this up here as a template, and then adding in our own images and things like that. So the images are not customized necessarily, so it doesn't look as good as it could, but I think that we're getting a good idea of what Webflow can do. So I like this section here, looks really nice, and we're going to come down and add this next section here. So let's get out of the preview mode and back into the editor. And I've created a little section down here just to kind of give us some space, because if not, we get like stuck up on the bottom like this, and it's a little bit strange. And there's no way to, you know, when you're doing using a code editor, you can scroll down past the code. I have not seen the option for that, so if anybody knows that there is an option for that, that would be great. So I've just created a little section here to give us some buffer room. And I'm going to add a new section, and the easiest way I've found, especially when you get a lot of different things going on here, is to just click on the navigator, which is here, and click body, and then you can click on the section, and it will automatically create a new section down here. So let's go ahead and name this section contact. So we're going to give it a class of contact, and then we're also going to give it an ID of contact. We'll call this section, and then let's begin to style our contact form. So we have a similar heading here that we have for this section, so it's essentially the same layout. It's just got a contact form instead of our collection list. So what we've done up here is we've created a team inner div. So let's go ahead and do that again, and we'll create a div block, and we'll just drag it right into the contact section, and that div block is going to be called contact inner. You could certainly make this a lot more modular by just creating an inner class, calling it section inner or something like that. All of our sections are not the same, so I just wanted to make this a little bit easier for us to go through. But 1200 pixels maximum width, and then if we click on this center element, it centers the element inside the div. So it requires some sort of width, so a max width or a width itself. Max width just means that it'll get real flexible until it gets to this point, and then it will stop flexing out and growing. We have the same section heading here, so we'll just Control C, Control V, so just copy and paste. And what we want this to say is what? Free legal consultation. Okay. And then after that we need, we're going to have another wrapper here for our form. And so we'll drag a div right here underneath free legal consultation. That's not where we wanted it to go. If you ever need to get a little bit more granular than just the drag and drop, you can drag and drop over here. So what we want that to do is we want it to go inside with our section heading. So we just rearrange those elements. This div block is going to be called form wrapper. And we're going to use the form wrapper to create this flex element so that we can put two elements side by side like this. Which means that we need to have two more elements, two more div blocks. So we'll just drag one in, and we'll call this one form. And then the other one we're going to call the map. Okay. Sometimes it helps to work in the navigator. So form wrapper is going to get another element, and this one's going to be called map. And we'll just rearrange those. Okay, so you can see them down here. They're not flexed, so you can see each of our divs takes up 100% of the space, and it is a block level element, so it takes up the full line. Let's go ahead and make that form wrapper display block. To display flex. And so now you see that our two elements are side by side, and we're going to make sure each of those elements takes up, we got to click on one of the children and make sure that it takes up a certain amount of space. So we have our flex grow and our flex shrink. So 0, 1, and not auto, but 50% should be okay. And then for the other one, the same thing. So 0, 1, 50%. We might wind up changing some of those values whenever we add margin between these two. You could also use CSS grid for those two elements. In fact, for our form, we can just go ahead and create a margin to the right of, it's probably 2 rem, so 32 pixels. And now we wind up with a nice separation between them. So for our form, we have a name, email, subject, and message, and then a little a button. There is a form element in here, and there is even a form section. So you have all these different elements, form elements that you can add. This one here, it tells you that it requires business hosting to do file uploads. So just note that. Let's just put a generic form block in here, and it gives us some form inputs already. We're going to get rid of these fields, and so we have our name. We can come in here and change things. So this is name. We can put a placeholder. I think that, okay, your name, your email. And this is just a plain text, so the text type is plain. And then in this one, we're going to say your email. And that'll be an email address. It's required. I think we should make this one required as well. And we need some more inputs. So we have two more inputs. We have a subject, which is just a plain type text input, and then we have a message, which is a text area. So it allows the user to write more than just one line worth of content. We can go up to our form elements, and we can actually insert those individually. So we can take one input and set it here below our email. So the name of this is going to be subject, and we'll just type your subject. It's a plain sort of thing, we're going to require it because they're seeking legal consultation. So we just kind of need all this information so that we can know what's going to happen, what they're sending along. And then our last element is going to be a text area, which you can see here. And we're going to put our text area under our subject. And this is going to be the message. And that's going to be required as well. Let's just be consistent with our capitalization. Okay. And then lastly, we'll come down to our submit button. Excuse me. And we'll say send message. And then for our waiting text, we'll say sending. Okay. For our button, let's go ahead and add, I believe we have a button class. And then our button class, we have one up here called ghost button. Yeah, we created ghost button. So we'll just we'll call it solid. Alright, what did we just do? Okay, that one's fine. So we'll give this a class of button. And then we're also going to call this solid button. That'll be fine. We're going to give it this pinkish red color. Let's do the lighter color. So we'll just copy that color. And we'll come down and we'll make this solid button, because right now we have a I don't know what they call it here, they're kind of like a compound selector. So you have a button that's taking on all the button styles, but then we're going to create a more specific button called solid button so that we can reuse that button in the future. And we're going to give it a background of that color. And so you see it takes that color here, and not sure if let's just go ahead and do 16, and then we'll say maybe a medium. Yeah, we'll say medium, and then I'm going to add a little bit more padding to my button than they have. So let's just do 16 that way. Sorry, let's go back a little bit. Let's try that again. So let's just do 16 like this, and our button is a little bit bigger, and I'm also going to create a little bit of space, a little margin on the bottom. There's 10 pixels right now. Let's go ahead and bump that up to like 24. And could create a class for these or not, doesn't really matter. If I were doing this over the long term, maybe I would do something like that. I would just create a class for each of these inputs. But right now we're just kind of doing it quick and dirty style. So now we have all of our inputs with a little bit of space underneath. And we need to now insert our map. So I haven't tried this yet, so let's just check it out. But there is a component here under the components that says map. So let's just drag that in there and see what we get. Okay, it requires a Google Maps API to work properly. Our map did not go into our box, which is what we originally wanted. Can we just drag that in? Okay. So I'm not going to connect the map right now. I think it'll be okay. I'm not going to go through everything to create a Google Maps API. You could look at that yourself. But essentially we have everything here that we need. You can see that when we type into our box, our placeholder text goes away. It tells us when things are required. Like if we try to send the message, it'll tell us that things are required, so we have some validation. And then we have our map here. Let's create a little space. Up here, what do we do? For our list wrapper, we have 64 pixels of space. That's I don't know what that is, 4 rem of space. So let's go to our form wrapper, and we can either type 4 rem, or we can type 64 pixels. So you can see that you can use multiple units to be able to get yourself to the same space. So whatever you're comfortable with, rem, m, pixel, maybe even points, I don't know. And this one has a little bit of a soft gray background to it. That's going to help set things off. So let's just give that a little soft gray background. I don't know that we have that color, but let me see. That's white smoke. That's it. So we'll give it that nice soft gray. And then that sets it apart a little bit from this container. And then this container in the contact, we are going to just go ahead and do, I think it was 80. Let's just bump it all the way up to 80 and see what that does for us. Let's see if that gets us where we need to go. Seems like it. It's a pretty good pretty good padding, maybe a little bit too much on the top, so let's pull the top down to 64. Okay. Alright, so that looks pretty good for our form. You can see that our form is here, and it has a Google map with a little form element. And same thing, we have our form element, we have our Google map, it's flexed, so that's actually going to be easy to make vertical or to make horizontal. And again, you could use you could use CSS Grid just as easily. Flexbox is a little bit more accepted across the browsers, but you could use either at this point. Alright, so that's our contact form. The next section is going to be our blog section, so we're going to create another collection of blog posts, and then I'll show you how to connect the blog post to a blog post page, which is up here in the collections pages. I talked about it in the previous video, but we'll actually connect these pages up and we'll create a blog post template, not just a blog post list. Okay, so that'll be in the next video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you need to catch up on the videos, just go back to the first ones in this series and see how we've done the rest of these sections. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.